A few days ago, a simple video quietly made its way online, and within hours, it became something of a phenomenon. It wasn't the kind of clip you'd expect to blow up. No luxury cars, flashing lights, or celebrity antics. Instead, it was a gentle, almost intimate moment. A daughter and her mother sitting together in a church pew on an unremarkable Tuesday. The kind of scene that happens every day, everywhere. Yet, somehow, this one moment managed to capture the internet's heart. The reason? The elegant woman in the wheelchair, draped in a richly patterned dress, strands of pearls glowing softly against her skin, a classic black Chanel bag resting on her lap with regal poise. That's Katherine Jackson. Yes, the matriarch of the Jackson family. Michael Jackson's mother, a woman approaching her 96th birthday, with the same quiet dignity that has marked her entire life. 96 years. Really let that number wash over you for a moment. Imagine the stories, the memories, the history contained in nearly a century of living. It was LaToya Jackson, Michael's sister, who posted the video on Instagram on March 10th. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Fans and admirers poured into the comments, not with the usual barrage of rumors or controversy, but with messages of genuine affection and admiration. One commenter called Katherine a pillar of strength, an unbreakable rock. Another wrote, "Mama Jackson looking lovely as ever." These were beautiful sentiments, but they barely scratched the surface of who Katherine Jackson is and what she represents. For those of us who came of age with the soundtrack of the Jackson 5, who watched the world change as Michael's moonwalk lit up television screens, Katherine Jackson is more than just a celebrity's mother. She's a touchstone, a living link to a time when music, family, and resilience were woven together in extraordinary ways. Maybe you still have vinyl albums of Michael or the Jacksons, or perhaps you know every lyric to Billie Jean. But behind the stardom, behind the platinum records and the sold-out tours, stands Katherine, the steadfast matriarch from Gary, Indiana, who raised 10 children in the spotlight's glare and through the shadows of unimaginable hardship. She has weathered storms that would break most people, yet still finds the grace to show up at church, dressed to the nines, exuding the kind of quiet confidence that can only come from a lifetime of perseverance. Let's pause and really appreciate Katherine Jackson. So often her remarkable story gets eclipsed by the fame and drama of her family. But she is so much more than a footnote in someone else's legend. Born in Alabama in 1930, Katherine came into a world that was anything but easy. The Great Depression was still casting its shadow, and the realities of race and poverty in the South were harsh and unyielding. Her family eventually moved to Indiana, where she nurtured her love for music, playing the clarinet and dreaming of performing, even as polio left her with a limp that could have ended those dreams before they began. But she never let adversity define her. She moved forward with determination, carving out a life defined by resilience and hope. In 1949, she married Joe Jackson, and together they built a family that would become one of the most influential in music history. Rebby, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, LaToya, Marlon, Michael, Randy, Janet. 10 children in all. In a home that must have buzzed with noise, ambition, and energy, Katherine was the anchor. Joe was the driving force behind the children's path to stardom, sometimes with a hard edge, but Katherine balanced that intensity with warmth and comfort. Michael once wrote that his mother's love was the foundation of his childhood, the bedrock that made everything else possible. For someone who became one of the most famous people on the planet, that love meant everything. It was a lifeline in a world that often felt overwhelming. But perhaps what's most remarkable about Katherine is not just what she's endured, but how she's endured it. She watched her children rise to global superstardom, then saw them scrutinized and criticized in ways few can imagine. She outlived her husband Joe, who passed in 2018, and endured the heartbreaking loss of her son Tito just last year. Most devastating of all, she has spent more than 15 years without Michael, who died in 2009 at just 50 years old. Losing a child is a wound that never truly heals. Yet, Katherine continues to show up for her family, for her community, for herself. Imagine the emotional weight she carries, the memories, the losses, the joys interwoven with sorrow. Yet, in every public appearance, in every candid video, she radiates the same gentle strength she always has. She goes to church, lets her daughters hold her hand, smiles softly for the camera, and allows her presence to be a source of comfort for those who have followed her journey. LaToya described her mother as someone who simply radiates love, a sentiment that feels almost revolutionary in an age defined by cynicism and spectacle. There's something deeply moving, almost radical, about a woman in her mid-90s who can still inspire millions with a fleeting glimpse of her quiet grace. In a 30-second video, just sitting in church, Katherine Jackson managed to bring the internet to a pause, to make people feel something real and profound. It wasn't just Jackson fans who responded. People saw in her the embodiment of endurance, of a mother's devotion, of the quiet heroism that comes from simply refusing to give up. Even as she approaches her 96th year, Katherine Jackson remains present, poised, and dignified, always impeccably dressed, her pearls gleaming as a symbol not just of style, but of the richness of a life fully lived. She shows us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sits quietly, holding the hand of a daughter, offering a kind smile, showing up for the rituals that give life meaning. If you step back and really consider her story, you begin to see that Katherine Jackson is more than just the mother of famous children. She is a survivor, a nurturer, a dreamer who never stopped believing in the power of love to hold a family together. She has faced unimaginable challenges: poverty, illness, loss, and the relentless scrutiny of the world, and emerged each time with her spirit intact. Maybe that's why this little video resonated so deeply. In Katherine Jackson, we see the best of what it means to be human: endurance, grace, and above all, love. She reminds us that the most remarkable lives are often those lived quietly, with compassion and resilience that ripple outward, touching people she will never meet. As she nears her 96th birthday, Katherine Jackson is still teaching us all how to move through the world, with dignity, with kindness, and with an unbreakable heart.